Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon everyone. Welcome back to my channel. And if this is your first time, welcome. So today we're going to be working on the equation and we're trying to find the value of x. And the first thing you have to note is that I'm going to teach you two ways of solving this problem. The first one is going to be using traditional math and it's going to involve your math skills, while the other one is just a common sense method. So you have 3 root x minus 20 equals 2 root x. What is the value of x? So the traditional math method you're going to use to solve this is to first of all rewrite the question. So 3 root x minus 20 equals 2 square root of x. Hence, the first thing you have to do is to square both sides of the equation. When you square both sides of the equation, you have 3 root x all squared. So one thing you can do is to first of all square the 3. Okay. So times the square of the square root of x minus 20. So you have x minus 20 all squared. So this is a quick way of doing it because 3 root x minus 20 is the same thing as 3 times x minus 20. You can split the two parts of the information and square one side like we did squaring the 3. So 3 times 3 and then squaring the other part, which is squaring the square root of x minus 20. So we're going to do that same technique on the right side of the equation. So we're going to have 2 times 2, right, times the square root of x all squared. So when you go on to do that, we're going to continue with traditional math. 9 times, now you have the square root of a square root. Well, from doing math and getting to this point, you're supposed to know that the squared of a square root is just what is basically inside of the square root. So if we have 2, right, and squared, so the square root of 2 all squared is the same thing as you basically canceling out the square and the square root, so the answer will be 2. So basically what is inside, and the mathematics behind that is the same thing as saying the square root of 2 is the same thing as 2 raised to the power of 1/2. Now the squared of the square root of 2 is the same thing as 2 raised to the power of 1/2 all squared. And we know with the laws of exponents is that you can basically multiply exponents together. Like when you have a power of a particular base and then that information raised to another power, you can just treat the powers as things that can multiply each other. So 2 raised to the power of 1/2 all squared is the same thing as 1/2 times 2, which is just 1. So that's just going to give you 2. So this is the mathematics behind it. And this is just a quick method, knowing that you're just going to cancel the squared and the square root. So that's just a little bit of math. So we go to actually continue solving the problem. If you don't understand what I just said, make sure you rewind the video and then just make it a little bit slower, make my explanation a little bit slower. So you have the square root of x minus 20 all squared. You just have x minus 20 here, right? And then you have 2 times 2, which is 4. And then you have the square root of x all squared is the same thing as times x. So that would be 9 open bracket x minus 20 equals 4x. So 9 open bracket x minus 20 is the same thing as 9x minus 2 times 9 is 80, negative 180 equals 4x. Hence, if we continue solving the problem, which I'm going to do on the right side, that's going to be 9x. To solve this, we can just add plus 180 because we're trying to isolate the x. And we could also add negative 4x on this side. We're going to do the same thing on the right side. So plus 180. So we have plus 4x plus 180 minus 4x. So we add that. When we do that, we can say 9x minus 4x equals 180. So you have 5x equals 180. So x equals 180 divided by 5. So 5 here, 1. 5 in 18, that's 3. It's going to have remainder 3. So that's 3 here. So 5 in 30, that's 6. So x equals 36. And this is how you solve this question using traditional methods. So our answer C equals 36. But guess what? What if we had a situation where you're not very good with squares and square roots, or you do not necessarily trust your ability to successfully do a square and square root problem, or basically go through the whole process of solving radical equations easily. So if you know you can trust that, there is another method you can use where you're going to be using a form of common sense so that you can actually solve it and you can actually get the right answer. So I'm going to rewrite the question. So 3 root x minus 20 equals 2 root x. And I'm going to rewrite the options. So A equals 12, B equals 24, C equals 36, and D equals 60. So this method requires you to input the values, the option A, B, C, and D. And you're going to do it as fast as you can, that you're not going to make any mistakes. So I'm going to start with option A. In our option A, which is A equals to 12, I'm going to pick the equation again. So 3 root x minus 20 equals 2 root x. So I'm going to substitute each one of the options as x. And whenever the left-hand side of the equation equals the right-hand side of the equation, then we know that we've gotten the correct answer. That's how you think through math. So basically, you are working backwards so that you can find the answer to the question. So that's a common sense method if you know that you're not very good with the traditional math method I had done previously. So when I put in 12, I have 3. 12 minus 20 equals 2, the square root of 12. 3, 12 minus 20, that's equals to the square root of negative 8 equals 2 root 12. So this side and this side are not the same. There is no way they are going to equal the same exact thing. First of all, we have a negative value 8 in the radical, and this question does not involve us using imaginary numbers in any way, shape, or form. So this is not going to work, and because this is not going to work, then this cannot work basically. So the left hand side and the right hand side do not equal each other, and because they don't equal each other, A equals 12 is not the answer. So we're going to try this for option B. So we have B equals 24. So we're going to substitute that. So I'm not going to rewrite this equation. I'm just going to substitute for x up front. So 3, the square root of x minus 20, that's 24, minus 20 equals 2, the square root of x. X is 24. So that would be 3 root 24 minus 20 is 4 equals 2. So you have the root 24 is the same thing as square root of 6 times the square root of 4. So you have 3 times 2 equals 2 times root 6 times the square root of 4. So that would be 2 times the square root of 4 is 2. So that would be 4 root 6. So basically what you have is that continuing B, so you have 6 equals the 4 root 6. Now, the way you're going to know how to do this to see if your answer is correct is, first of all, if this is a calculation problem on the SATs, you can just use a calculator. Use a calculator to approximate 4 times the square root of 6. But I'm going to teach you another method in case this is not a calculation problem or in case you do not have time, so you can work mentally. First of all, this is 6, this is 4. Remember that 4 root 6 is the same thing as 4 times root 6. And what that means is that 4 times root 6, right, whatever the value of root 6 is times 4 is basically what this information is. So we have to think of the closest square root information to 6. So, for example, we have the square root of 4. For sure, it's going to be less than the square root of 6 because 6 is a greater number than 4. So the square root of 4 is basically 2. So that means this is going to be 4 times approximately 2. 4 times approximately 2 is the same thing as 8. There is no way that 6 is going to be equals to something actually greater than 8. Something actually greater than 8. So our answer is not even, the square root of 6 is not actually 2. It's going to be greater than 2. So 2, something greater than 2 times 4 means it's going to be greater than 8. So therefore, 6 cannot equal this. And our answer of B24 is not going to be equal to this. And this is wrong. So now let's go to C. Option C is 24, right? And that means that 3, the square root of x minus 20, equals 2 root of x. So when you have this, you're just going to put 3 and then you put 24, not 24, I'm so sorry, we just did 24. The next one is 36. I don't know why I just said 24. 36, you guys, I apologize. So 36, and then you have 36 minus 20. Okay, so we're substituting, is equal to 2 root 36. So that would be 3. The square root of 36 minus 20 is 16. And then 2 times root 36. The square root of 36 is 6. So that's 6. So that would be 3. The square root of 16 on the left hand side, that's 4. Equals to 2 times 6. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times 6 is 12. Okay, so we have an answer that works. Hence, this proves that our answer C equals to 36 is how you solve this. So what I would just advise you to do, if you're confident with your radical and your square root, squaring, and all this other working with linear equations that have radical forms or square root or squared forms or whatever, cubed root or fourth root, use the first method. If you're not sure of your skills but you also understand how to think through a problem common sense way and just working backwards, I would advise you to use the second method. If you're comfortable using both methods, I would advise you to use whichever method is faster for you, just so you can save time on the test. I wish you guys all the very best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.